From the quarantine hills of Appalachia, deep in the social distanced heart of West Virginia, this is the Mountain Musket. I'm Seth Campbell.
Justin Seibert.
I'm Josiah Batten.
We are here, and we are from the social distance capital of the world in West Virginia, Appalachia, coming to you in the midst of COVID-19 2020. And actually, very apropos, that is exactly what we're going to be talking about. So we are going to try to, we don't really have an agenda. We don't really have any questions as far as like somebody wants to get a point across or anything. We just want to talk, and we just want to figure out how are we supposed to think about this? How are we supposed to wrap our minds around what is exactly going on? And so I think the biggest question is, what do you guys, just broad level, what do you think about what's going on? What is when something like this happens, which is never happened before in our lifetime,
right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What is your knee-jerk reaction to, how do you think about this? First thing you think.
What is that wonderful gif where like the character, the actor that plays the Hobbit, where he's just like, well, if you could just calm down a bit. So first off, when you're met with something that a lot of people don't understand, there's a lot of moving parts, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
The smartest thing to do is just like, let's
cool
calm
out.
down.
Just calm down.
Remain in place, and let's listen and see what actually happens. So a lot of people I've seen are just, they're everywhere. They're talking about, my neighbor was telling me that people are just falling over dead from the coronavirus, and it's a rumor being passed down. Like, it's like
or you solve it by drinking bleach. Like that's how you protect yourself from coronavirus.
Just
I've heard gargling apple cider vinegar.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, everyone says that about everything.
Yeah.
But, I remember when I was in the hospital for that stomach stuff. They're like, "Have you gargled apple cider vinegar?" I'm like, "No, Cheryl, I'm in the hospital. like I'm gonna die." But that's Justin's take. Just chill for a bit, remain in place, and that was my first instinct when things started popping off. I'm like,
so your first instinct is just chill out. Let me guess what your first instinct is. Your first instinct is this is everything I've been waiting for.
This is my moment. This is my moment. Like, this is what I've prepared for. This is what I've anticipated.
This is it.
I knew this was going to happen, and I was right.
So you went straight to prepper mode.
He's been in prepper mode. How many years have you been in prepper mode?
As long as I've been married, at least.
Yeah.
I mean, really, like, I'm an Eagle Scout, so like I had to do emergency preparedness as a merit badge. I did wilderness survival as a merit badge. You have to do first aid as a merit badge. So all these things kind of started when I was like in Scouts, and just when you have a family to take care of, you start to take some of it more seriously. Yeah. Just in terms of being prepared and being able to provide for your family if something unexpected happens.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I went out and got some food. Like, I didn't go nuts and buy 4 gallons of milk and 70 eggs or anything like that. But I was like, we have a nice 3-month supply of canned food, but we should probably get some more.
Well, the hard part of having a family the size of mine and ours is you go to the store and it looks like you're prepping and it's just Wednesday. Like, you're just
I have
you're
4
just
kids.
You're just buying. Look, I'm not hoarding the toilet paper. I just this is how much poop we have to wipe in our house. Like, this is what
yeah, and you have a bidet. Like, you're responsible.
We're living in the lap of luxury.
Right? Yeah, I mean, you're smarter than the most of us. It's less toilet paper.
That's right.
And everyone has water right now.
That's right.
So.
Yeah.
So I think my initial response to the whole thing is just, let's get to the bottom of this. Let's figure out. And I think that is probably the hardest thing of what's going on, because we're not just being asked to trust our own government and our own media and our own neighbor. We're being asked to trust the Chinese. We're being asked to trust the Iranians. We're being asked to trust, the
World Health Organization.
I mean, there are so many moving parts here. And so your first inclination is calm down. My first inclination is to not believe what I'm hearing, in a sense of I can't trust anyone, but I have to take every single bit of information that I get from every single person that I get it from with a grain of salt, because I don't know where this is coming from. I don't trust the Chinese as far as I can throw them.
So that's why I stand still, because as long as I've got food and heat, and people were comfortable. I'm lucky because I've been working remote for 8 years, so I'm able to work. Like for me, this was like not a big upset. I'm like, this is how I live every day. Like you guys leave the house.
What is that?
Like, what is that?
Who does that?
But I think it's good to just sit tight, assess, not make any moves. Like, I might have inventoried my war box, like, and, maybe counted my ammo once or twice, but that's an old tendency that is never going to go away.
I think the bigger concern for me was less, and not necessarily because I'm not susceptible, but my circle of people that I really interact with, like, my social circle is not that big anyway. So I really wasn't super concerned about being infected. But I think the bigger concern for me was when everything started shutting down. And I think the big one for me that like started raising alarm bells was when sports started shutting down, particularly the NCAA tournament. Think about, and I want just March Madness. Think about how much money the NCAA and all their sponsors walked away from.
Hundreds of millions plus.
Hundreds of millions of dollars in TV advertising, everything. They just walked away.
Yikes.
That has to be like, they have to be really scared. Of liability. They have to be scared, like, of being able to be sued more than that, or have their hand caught in the cookie jar for more than that. And that's when I started really paying attention, and the downstream effects of that, or what is this going to do to the economy? And I think that's probably where I think more than anything is what is the cost benefits analysis of what we're doing economically, and maybe we can go there. What is the cost benefits analysis of what we're doing economically? Like the potential lives you save for shutting everything down versus the potential lives you lose of how many people are going to commit suicide. Because everything
people are
built,
dead. I mean, if people are dead, people can't go to work. So that's the balancing act is can we get our population sick and 1.5? Can we know that only 1.5% are going to get it, which is still an insane amount of people. Oh man, that's a lot of people. Can we ensure it won't go over 1.5%, or will it get worse, or can we flatten this curve? Are we willing to take this economic punch in the face now, and then offset it via checks or tax credits,
bailouts?
That's what they are. They're bailouts. They're they're federalistic bailouts, and I'm not sure that obviously the underlying stuff with taxes and how we run our federal branch of government is something of high contention with me, but this would be a good time for a strong federal government, and in the sense of this is the one thing. If there were a thing that government would do, be like, hey, we as a nation are going to try to flatten.
Not everybody agrees with you.
Not everyone does.
I tell you what, man, I don't come from some great principle on this. It's just like, this is just really common sense to me. Like, maybe we should. I'd rather eat it. I'd rather eat a punch up front than
economically.
I would. I'd rather eat an economic punch up front, because our country is, whether we like it or not, we're fat and we are greedy. We have more than we need. It would just it would hurt for a little bit, and people would lose jobs, and you would see some of the false Keynesiast economic constructs that have been put in place. They're going to fail. You're going to watch them crumble because they weren't designed for this. This is a system of cogs that is as they think it's been machined finely, and maybe it has, but one grain of sand gets in. This has crushed us.
So
we don't. Go ahead, Joe.
C.R. Wiley has been posting a lot about this situation causing us to run into reality, so to speak. And when you look at our economy and our economic system, you begin to see that it really does have some disconnects with reality, where when hard realities set in, it doesn't weather those well.
That's right.
It just wasn't meant to. It's like an engine. They don't want other particles getting in.
Well, the assumption of the American economy is you always are going to have consumers. You're always going to have consumers. That everyone in the economy is a consumer. And if that's the operating assumption that you have, well, what happens when the people aren't there to consume?
And
what happens when people can't go out and consume your product? What happens? I saw a lady, I can't remember what news channel it was, but she was crying because she was closing down her store. And this is terrible. Her store, her store was like unicorn backpacks. Like, she sold vintage unicorn backpacks. That's what she sold.
And I'm glad.
But she's crying. Like, I have to and of course I feel for this lady, but like, you built your entire
Yeah.
your entire life is selling unicorn backpacks.
It's a narrow niche.
That's right. You have
Not just that. Like all you're doing from a business perspective there is getting it cheaper and selling it for more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not
That's
trying
how
to
retail works,
It's just retail. You're
Yeah.
just selling a thing, and it doesn't need maintenance of any kind. It doesn't need professional services of any kind. It's a bad product, as it were. And I'm glad we live in such a time that we can have such a diverse. Is that the word I'm looking for?
it's diverse.
Oh, it's diverse. A diverse economic. I don't know, chances that we can get unicorn backpacks. But my point is that, like CR was saying, that's not reality. Like that's during the times of fat.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's not all the time.
Right.
Yes.
And the assumption that you can build wealth, you can build your entire life, your retirement plan on this assumption that you can just buy a piece of paper, a stock, okay, and that stock will increase in value above its actual value, above its face value or stated value, okay, above whatever you bought it for, and then that's going to retain that value over time.
Yeah, you're not making any money. You don't make money in the stock market.
Right.
You don't make everything is theoretical until you cash out.
It's right. It's not real
It's
wealth
not
until
real
you
until
cash
you
out.
cash out.
So
Yeah.
the resident guy on the team that's made like thousands of dollars off stocks. That's absolutely true. Like all you're doing. So I get 50 shares of Fortinet at $100 a share.
Yeah.
Great. I've got $5,000. Super happy about that. Then I have to make sure it's more valuable for me to sell it, and it can't be just for a little bit. Like
Right.
it's got to be
You
double.
wanna maximize.
Yeah, I want to maximize because I don't want to give up those shares because that's it's a form of property. I wouldn't call it real property in my
Right.
opinion. But it's I agree with you there, dude. I don't know enough on economics. We have to get an economist on here maybe and talk to him about this. But I feel like the whole stock, buying stock in a company program it's just not.
It wasn't meant to be the cornerstone of our economic system.
Right.
I don't see there's anything wrong with it.
Well, you're just buying equity, yeah.
But when you put literally every egg that we have economically is in that basket. That's it.
Yeah.
Every 401k, and as much as I think we need entitlement reform. I think we need entitlement reform.
Yeah.
But to take pensions and all of that and to roll it over into the stock market, that's worse. You're going to make it worse because now you're putting even more eggs in that basket. And what happens if it crashes like it has now? You've just created more problems.
It's not like
and
it hasn't crashed
you haven't solved the problem.
It's not like it hasn't crashed before.
That's what I'm saying.
Like it happens. It's a
Right.
thing. It doesn't take much even. Like the Great Depression obviously had a lot of heavy hitters, hard punches, but it didn't take much for it to tip over the edge.
Well, I was listening to, I don't remember who I was, I think it was, I don't know if it's NPR, I don't remember who it was, but they were talking about this, I think it was Shapiro. And he was talking about how there's there's a break, sort of like an if you have an electrical system in your house, there's a breaker that breaks before you overload the system. And that if there's a huge sell-off in a certain amount of time, that there's a break that happens and everyone stops trading for 15 minutes, assuming that everyone needs to calm down and just eat a sandwich and take a drink and calm down so you don't sell everything in the next 10 minutes. But most of the trading that's done is done by robots and done electronically and done with algorithms. And it doesn't matter that this break that was put in the system back in the 70s or 80s when people were doing the trading. That break was put there assuming human rationality. And so the break comes in, everyone stops trading, the break comes back, and then everybody just keeps selling and selling and selling because it's an algorithm.
So what do we think, going back to the question here?
Is it worth it?
Is it worth it? Is it worth it that are we willing to take the punch? Here's the thing: like the federal government could buy its way out of this and tack it on to the debt,
which is what they will do.
Yeah, I mean that's going. So everyone out there is like clutching.
We're not a fan of that either.
I'm not a huge fan of that by any means, because it's not being creative. Like even if I didn't believe that was good, like can we try something else first? That's not even a creative option. Can we work with business owners? Can we get?
That's all they know how to do. That's all I've ever done.
I guess, but my point is everyone's freaking out. If we did take a financial hit, it'd be no worse than a financial hit we've taken for the last 10 years in Afghanistan. It'd be nothing compared to the financial hit we've taken in the last 10 years in Afghanistan. So I think that will be all right. It just sucks. I hope that our society doesn't, and our government too, like they need to have a something in the game here, but I'm going to keep on going back to that. Our society, not even just like the consumer economic, we're just not built to be self-sufficient in any way, shape, or form.
Yep.
And I'm not. No one's asking you to start a farm and be like Evan Folkenstein and has an acre and he feeds himself. I don't want everyone to do that, but I definitely want like regional farmers back again. Mm-hmm. I want supermarkets not to be dependent on chains from a centralized point of view. Big is bad, I guess. Right? Like
that was I think it was Andrew Breitbart.
Yeah.
He said, big is bad.
Big is bad.
Doesn't matter if it's government. Doesn't matter if it's business.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what it is. Big is bad.
You want local economy.
I want local. I want local economies.
Everything.
I want local communities. I'm not saying that these local communities supplant other extra local economies. They don't. It's just they are the foundation for it. Just like the family is the foundation for society, the local economy, the local community is the foundation for any other economy spurring forth. And if we had a system like that, where we didn't have to have both parents in schools all the time, we didn't pay $30,000 a year.
Both parents at work, you mean?
At work, yeah. My apologies. Both parents at work. All the kids have to be at public school because both parents are at work. And oh, by the way, they pay an extra $30,000 a year to put these kids in daycare for when they can't be at home with their kids and they're already at school all that time. It's sick.
Yeah.
It's sick. That's what it is. I'm not saying like disgusting. I'm just saying it's not.
It's not well.
It's not well.
Yeah.
It's unwell.
It's unwell. Yeah.
And not to go on a huge spiel about that, but one, yes, we can get through this, and I think we should take the financial punch in the face. Two, I think our society is sick, and three, I hope someone realizes it, because I don't want to go through this again, where one small grain of sand in the engine shuts us down. It's not good.
Well, the economic cycle is recurring upswings and downswings in the economy over time. You are always going to have that. Mm-hmm. The advantage of a local economy. Okay, think about the things that
going back to local economies.
Yeah, going back to local economies. Think about the things that we import. Mm-hmm. We don't import great things.
Nope.
We import cheap plastic crap.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
It used to be back in the day, if you were going to import a Swiss watch, you were doing that because it vastly exceeded the quality.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It vastly exceeded the quality of your clockmaker in town.
That's crazy.
Okay? And today, you don't have a clockmaker in town, so you import cheap plastic crap from China, which is where this all... And this is raising the question, okay, of how dependent should we be on other countries? Not even just China. How dependent should we be on other countries
to make our stuff?
To make our things...
Taiwan.
Yeah.
Malaysia. All these places that we're getting stuff made. Because we don't make anything here. I was talking to a buddy about this the other day. I was like, John, do you realize like just how helpless we are? Like if I was a business owner and I came up with an invention, right? Let's say it was a type of brace that you could put on for standing at the shore fishing, right? So you put the pole in it. And I'm like, man, I want to make that out of some sort of polymer. I'm going to go to my local factory and I'm going to go get this made. Maybe just $250, see how they do, right? Go on Amazon because it's like a marketplace and sell my crap, you know? You can't do that. So first off, you got to go work with someone in China.
Yeah.
Good luck. Have fun. You're going to get someone eventually. They'll make whatever you want.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's not natural. It's not right.
Well, there's something about it that says you need to work with other people. You need other people in order to produce something. And that thing that you to produce needs to be good for everyone involved. But the last thing you should do is be going to another that's a last resort option. Last resort option should be I need to go to someone who doesn't even speak my language in order to help me figure out how to make this.
Yeah, you're getting a good deal or you're getting a good product and you're getting a bulk pricing, something like that's when you travel to Pittsburgh to go IKEA because that's the only place you can go to get the pricing you want.
And you look at where America does lead manufacturing. Okay, you look at our gun makers. Okay, Winchester.
Are they outsourced now?
I don't know.
Are they still on the continent?
I was under the impression
I thought they were. Yeah.
But, Colt, one for sure we know is here.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
You look
Smith
at
& Wesson's here.
Smith & Wesson.
Yep.
Okay, you look at these guys; they're doing fine.
Springfield Armory.
Yeah.
Right. They're doing fine. They manufacture here. These are regarded as good quality products, right? They're going to make it. They're going to do fine. Even like High Point, which is a really budget gun, right?
Budget.
Really,
that's kind.
Really, but they're American still. They're American made. They're gonna make it. FYI.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. No, it's just I think what this really does point out to our country is that not only is our society sick, our culture of consumerism and how we depend on other people, and you said it best when I produce something.
Yeah,
we don't produce things.
No.
Services aren't things.
Well, the idea is, again, the idea of the entire economic system is built on you're not a producer, you're a consumer.
Mm-hmm.
And I love faster, better, cheaper. That's great for me as a consumer. Yeah. But if all you ever, and this is the mindset that we're trying to shake, and I hope that this whole thing shakes somebody loose of, you are not, you can consume. Of course you can consume. There are things you need to consume. And of course you want it faster, better, cheaper. Of course. But if all you ever do is consume.
Yeah. You're poor.
That's
what Scripture says.
If all you ever do.
You're poor.
All you ever do is consume.
Yeah.
If all you ever do is borrow, then you're a slave.
You're effectively.
Then you're a slave. That's all you are.
You're effectively in debt in the future to purchases you haven't made yet. Okay,
yeah, especially with the way that privacy is going these days, people can project how you're going to buy.
Right,
it's crazy.
But yeah, you're effectively in debt. All these guys like Dave Ramsey talk about getting out of debt, which is great. He gives great advice for people getting out of debt. He doesn't then give people great advice for how to become a producer, right? He gives people great advice for how to set up a retirement account,
not be a consumer.
Well, yeah. He gives okay advice for how to set up a retirement account.
But his assumption is that at the end of your life, when you retire, what are you going to do? You're going to sit and consume.
Sit and consume.
Yeah.
I've made stuff for other people. I've worked for the man my whole life, and now I'm going to work for myself. And work for myself means sit on a beach.
I'm a cog. I'm going to fall right into my gear hole.
Yeah.
And we're going to call this a day.
Yeah.
I'm just going to fall out and
this is
drink
the guy
my soma.
This is the guy Christians and churches have hitched their wagon onto and said, "This is our finance guy. This is the guy."
And and this is not to slam Dave Ramsey, but
awesome dude.
That system. What does that system assume about the next generation?
Mm-hmm.
It assumes that the next generation is supposed to do it for themselves.
Yep.
Scripture. If we're going to talk scripturally, if we're going to think biblically, we need to be thinking not just about our children, not just about our children's children, but about their children and the grandchildren and great-great-great-grandchildren. That is how this country was built.
Yeah.
How did we get here?
No, you're absolutely right. So you're saying that not only is what points been over, society's weak, it's broken, it's sick, that building our society in such a way is wrong.
Morally wrong.
Oh my gosh!
Yes.
I'm just making sure I got that.
Morally wrong because you are failing to think about the next generation. You are not doing with the gifts the greatest gifts that God has given you, which is your children and your grandchildren. You're not doing with them what you should be doing. And you're outsourcing the most important work you are doing. You're outsourcing it to someone else so that you can do work for some man, so that you can save enough, maybe, to sit on a beach from the age 65 to 75, and then your kids have outsourced your final care to someone else, and they come and see you maybe, and then they put you in the ground and hope that you left something for them
after paying off all your debts.
After paying off the fact that you died, and now now you have debt, and we have to pay that off, and we hope we get something from Dad because maybe. This is madness. It is utter madness.
So this is like a tad personal, but I was thinking about this about a year ago, and that's why I got in touch with the mutual financial advisor that we know, and talked to him. I'm like, I've got to leave something for them, and I've got to do enough now that I'm 30. Do it now, and then keep going. Like by the time I'm 50, hopefully by the time I'm 50. I can soft retire and go help my son open a business and work for him. Great. But either way, even if I can't do that, by the time I'm 50, my kid should have a nice nest egg if I were to go early. And God knows I've been abusive to my body. So I don't know how long we're going to be here. But my point is you have to start setting aside money. And that's it all leads back to this coronavirus thing. We just have never thought about the next day. Like to us, it's happens. It's a rite of passage.
Forget thinking about the next 3 months.
Right.
We don't think until the next paycheck. Forget thinking about the next generation.
Yeah.
We can't even think that far ahead. We can't do that. I can't think from paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah, and that was like I remember that said financial advisor, and we'll have to get him on here sometime talk about that.
We should.
Yeah,
We should.
He's a
great guy.
He straight up told me to my face like, "You're being irresponsible with your income." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So he like did a budget analysis. Like,
I could so hear him saying that.
Yeah, you're being irresponsible with your income, Justin. I'm like, okay, cool. So he like set me up. He's like, you need to be tithing, at least 10%. You need to set aside this amount. And it was just so refreshing. And we're so geared. We've been trained by every echelon of social institution to not just like, I want the new Game Boy. I want the new Xbox.
Yeah.
Can I get Netflix? I want to get a kayak and a truck, and I want to be like in nature. And then I'll just go back to my job 40 hours a week. And then I'll buy another thing in another 6 months. And we don't think about like, man, it'd be really cool if I could open up a business with my son in 30 years. Like, that'd be nice. I'd like to have a nice nest egg to give him when he graduated college. Be like, hey, go ahead and do that. Kind of like what Woody Thrasher's dad actually did. That's what happened with them. It was, that's a good example for all the people at Bridgeport. Woody Thrasher came from a generational wealth that was worked for. Like, they're not like wealthy, well-to-do because of, old coal money from the 1800s.
Well, and you could say the same thing about the Walton family.
Oh yeah.
The Walton family runs the world.
Yeah.
And what are they? It was a family. It was
a
family that just said, we're going to run a business. The Cathy family.
Yeah.
The Cathy family runs they only work 6 days a week, guys.
Right.
They work 6 days a week, and they are beating McDonald's. Are you kidding me?
And what we're talking about is we as Christians, our view of this is we don't want to be raising the peons.
Yeah.
We don't want to be raising the pawns. We want to be raising the kings and the queens.
That's right.
Okay?
The vassals.
This is how we think about this.
Right.
Because we expect God to be faithful to his promise to 1,000 generations of those who love him and keep his commandments.
Yeah, I was just about to tie that back in. The house that we're building is not our own. The house that we're building, and that's what at any time, if for anyone out there who's like, wow, these guys have it, we should do what they do. We should like build for 1,000 generations.
Oh, yeah. We absolutely don't have it together.
No.
Yeah, we definitely don't. I wanted to make sure that any time you ask the question in the middle of these schemes and these plans, and you say, whose kingdom am I building? And the response, and you can't say for sure Jesus Christ, the Lord of the universe. You're pause.
Yeah.
Take a break. Stop building a kingdom for a little bit. Get back to the basics.
And we talked about this before.
Wanted to inject that warning.
But we talked about this before. The idea of building something that's not for you and building something that lasts.
Yeah.
You think about we've talked about the cathedrals in Europe. You're talking stonemasons for hundreds of years building things that they will never see the end of. What is more Christian than that? What is more Christian than doing that for generation after generation after generation?
It's a physical statement that has such clear metaphysical realities. And that is the beauty of architecture, people. Just a heads up, we suck at that.
Oh yeah.
Well, we got to stop this. We got to stop this because we're going off track.
Bring this back. So we kind of touched on this just a little bit, but when we talk about the government and their reaction to COVID-19, to coronavirus, what role does the government have? What is their lawful, biblical, right role in addressing this?
I'm going to lay the floor with this real quick. Just I need to, I don't want to give my opinion. I just need to categorize this.
Yeah.
First off, there are very few people out there who believe that there is a standard of knots for government.
Yeah.
Okay? There's a standard, so a lot of people don't think there is a moral standard in Scripture.
Right.
They're wrong for government. So that's one. But let's assume that if God speaks on things, he speaks on all things, and he has, I think, explicitly spoken on government. So let's talk about that. The question here is, you're asking, is it legal within the?
I mean, okay. So
that's a good question. Are we talking legality or morality?
Twofold. Let's do it twofold.
Yeah, sorry.
What is the biblical role of government in addressing a crisis like this? And within the framework of our particular legal system, of the American constitutional system, what is the role of government?
Do you want to do the legal or the biblical first?
Well, we need to decide. If we're going to talk legal or biblical first.
Well, let's knock out.
Let's do biblical first.
Okay. Fair enough.
You go, Seth.
So, there's so many nuances that I need to qualify it, but I don't want my statement to die the death of 1,000 qualifications. Like, we can't take him seriously because he has to qualify every inch of every word he says. I believe generally that the law of God, the civil law of God, as laid out in the Old Testament, should apply is the moral law. That's the moral law of God for how government should work. Not just the moral law for how you and I should treat each other, but the moral law for how governments and judicial systems should work. Now, how you figure out how that applies, you have to do that equitably, you have to do that charitably, you have to do that in similar terms and in like kinds. Fair. The reason this gets a little wonky is because there is a big, huge section of the Old Testament that talks about disease and quarantining disease.
Yeah.
Like, it's a really big deal.
Yep.
And so you can be as blue-blooded libertarian as you want to be, and you can also try to juggle libertarianism with theonomy, the belief that God's law is binding on us still now.
Yeah.
But one of those shoes is eventually going to have to drop because you have to decide: am I a libertarian or am I theonomist? Do I believe that the human has the free will to do whatever he wants, or do I believe in God's law that says no, we need to quarantine disease? And there were people who actually applied, Leviticus 13, 14, 15, 16, all the way through. They applied these things, and in plagues in the past, there was actually a Jew, I can't remember his name, in Stroudsburg in Germany during the Black Plague that applied the Levitical law for cleanliness, and not cleanliness as in like we're holy before God, cleanliness, but a cleanliness like we need to be hygienic cleanliness.
Yeah.
He applied that kind of hygienic cleanliness to his isolated Jewish community, and they had almost no deaths. So much so that the people in Stroudsburg literally thought the Jews were immune and killed them.
Right.
Like, there was a riot against the Jews because they said, you guys are immune to this disease, so you clearly have demonic possession or something like that. All they were doing is following the Levitical law as far as cleanliness and quarantine and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So my view is that the civil magistrates have a role in quarantining disease. Now, what that looks like, we can talk about.
Oh, yeah.
But I think from a biblical standpoint, I don't think you can get around. If you believe that God's law should apply today, I don't think you can get around the fact that the civil magistrate has a role in. I mean, the civil magistrate has the ability and the right to bulldoze someone's house in the Levitical law, in the Deuteronomic law. When you get to the promised land, when you get there will be disease in the house. If there's a disease in the house and it doesn't leave for X number of days, doze it. It's there. And you got to wrestle with that. Like, God said that was okay for the civil magistrate to do. Now, you got to figure out how that applies and what that looks like, but I don't see how you can get around that. That's just my 2 cents.
Okay, so we have to start with theonomy because, like, I
told you I was going to open a can of worms.
I know. So I'm gonna close that can of worms in the sense of not like kick it out of the discussion, but theonomy, guys, is nothing more than saying that within the Old Testament, there's 3 kinds of law, all right? There's civil law, there's moral law, and then there's, I call them priesthood laws or like cleanliness laws, holiness laws. Is that what you guys would still call them? And within the Old Testament, within those 3 categories exist. And we're talking specifically about the civil law. There's case law in the Old Testament, and in the Old Testament, and it goes through various scenarios. For example, if you have a party on top of your house and you don't have a railing, and someone falls off and dies, well, their blood guilt it's basic liability. That's a legal liability. That's all that is, and we borrowed that.
But it also gives you the punishment.
Oh, yeah.
So you don't have to come up with the punishment like, this is what we think is the fairest thing. God tells you, when this happens, this is who's guilty, and this is what you do to them.
Right. And here's the cool thing about it is we obviously don't, like, make people pay back, murders and oxen or anything, but we can take from principle and equity these cases, this case law, which is basically what that is what all bodies of law do. They take case law and common law, and they formulate a tradition of law based on those cases and common laws. And guess what, guys? We have been using case law within Scripture, for example, liability, civil liability, what I just explained there, as legal principles back in Britain. I mean, the 1200s, you had Blackstone. Yeah. Blackstone wrote back in the 1200s. At any rate, I know Burke did later, but this isn't something weird, and this shouldn't be like a huge debate. I just wanted to close that can of worms there. So,
but all that to say, there is specific law, case law in here regarding infectious disease,
where God said it was just.
Where God says
the civil magistrate. What'd you say? Quarantine.
Yeah, the civil magistrate is just.
In quarantine.
And has not only the duty but the responsibility to quarantine and end and minimize the effect of infectious disease.
Yeah.
That's what it says.
Yes. And the government would not be unjust in doing so. Just like anything else, like when you read a law and you take, like, you have A, B, and C within a law, right? You can't just read A and ignore B and C. So we have to look at the rest, but this doesn't mean that due process isn't out the window. We have due process. We still have adjudication. We still have a right to appeal, a right to be heard, and in this case, the broad accuser would be the state to petition the state, and to be appointed counsel.
Yeah.
Even I think you get that a lot further away than the Constitution. So don't, again, I just want to explain his position. I will admit that I agree with you, if that makes you happy. I think the government does have a role in minimizing these, like, catastrophes. Everyone always knows, like, if right now this house caught on fire, we're at my house recording. So Josiah goes and gets a bucket. Seth goes and gets a bucket. You run down the street. You go upstairs to the fire, and I stay down here and drink beer. Not a lot's going to get accomplished, but if we all three work together collectively, we can get more accomplished, right? We can probably get that fire out. Well, everyone always knows that. If there ever were a time for a collective to get together, it'd be through the God-ordained
civil magistrate.
Civil magistrate.
Yeah.
And this would be the case. This would be the one, I think, where it doesn't mean you give the state absolute power to do that without just with flipping a finger here. It's just, it's okay to have it on the books, like, yeah, hey, if the Black Plague comes in and your house isn't really clean, we're going to burn it. That's not an unjust law, I think. I think it would be just for the state to reimburse.
Yeah, that's the nuance thing that we can figure out.
Right. That's the stuff we can figure out. Yeah.
But at the very least, biblical law question: is it biblical? Is quarantine biblical? I would say yes.
What do you think, Joe?
I agree. I was just asking. I've seen a lot of things on social media where it's kind of mostly more conservative, libertarian types looking at this like, this is a power grab by the government. This is their play. This is their play to use this as an excuse to infringe our liberties. Which I could see where some of that could happen.
That's true. Okay? It's going to happen.
But at the same time, we're Christians who are called to obey our government, and biblically, the government has the authority to quarantine.
That's right.
Yeah, just because we know something, we think. Excuse me, we do not know. Yeah. Just because we think, and
the pattern has shown that they have done this in the past.
Obviously, they're going to.
Don't waste a crisis.
The Department of Justice has just asked if they could indefinitely, essentially, jail someone during this crisis if they have to.
I mean, Lincoln suspended habeas corpus. This is not unprecedented, right? Yeah. Like, this happens, right? Has happened.
Yeah. So I guess here's the thing, guys. That sucks when you see I'll name drop him because we were saying this in love. Marcus Pittman.
Yeah.
Drives me nuts. I'm like, guys, you obviously believe the civil magistrate, theonomy will shock you. It will not be a libertarian paradise.
No. No.
It will not be a libertarian paradise.
Right.
Because if we're right, laws against adultery should still be on the book. Libertarians don't like that.
That's not a libertarian.
Yeah. No.
Prostitution is not legal.
Yeah, no. Prostitution's not. No. And people can't just be doing drugs all
whatever
the
they want.
time.
That's
yeah.
right. Yeah.
Like this is so. Yeah, we've been called.
That's what I was saying. If you're juggling this libertarian theonomy thing,
it's gonna hurt.
You're gonna have to pick,
and you don't even have to call it theonomy. It's just God's law.
Yeah.
It's just God's moral
That's what
law.
theonomy means.
Right. Yeah, literally. Theonomos.
Yeah,
Right.
That's literally what it means.
Right.
Okay, so now the other part of your question. What was the other part?
So the second part is we're called to obey the governing authority. Within our governing authority, under our constitution, our state constitution, what is that? What does that call look like? What authority does the government actually have?
First off, the federal government has a Commerce Clause. Mm-hmm. Straight up. Listen, the Commerce Clause has been abused over the years.
Yeah.
I know we're a little sensitive here. But it goes back to my other point. Just because we know people have abused things doesn't mean we don't do the right thing.
Doesn't mean it can't be used legitimately.
Yeah, right. Or that it couldn't be used legitimately. Ours is to do right, and when we see wrong, when we see it not being used legitimately, then yes, speak up and be a good reformer. That's what you do. But yeah, the Commerce Clause covers this to start. I mean, I'm sure there are a number of laws, Emergency Powers Act, or anything else that makes this legally. It is on the books. And as far as constitutionality, these things have been fought in the past, and right now the Supreme Court has been pretty clear. The precedent of the Supreme Court is clear. Obviously, the court is the final word on the Constitution.
Right.
But that's not how people treat them. They treat them as like the final word on law.
Right.
Everything? Yeah.
False. Not legally true.
Yeah.
But dude, they have at the state level, at the federal level, there's some cities that could like make you stay indoors with a curfew, and it wouldn't be illegal in our current positive legal system. Not only that, I don't think it'd be immoral. Obviously, in some cases, when if they willy-nilly were quarantining us, yes, that's immoral. But I don't think in every case it's going to be immoral.
So I think that you certainly have precedent in the past. I mean, George Washington forced people to get smallpox vaccinations. Like, he forced people to get vaccines as president of the United States, right? So there's precedent here. Now, you may not like that precedent. That precedent may have been unconstitutional.
Maybe it's all wrong.
Yeah, but it's there.
Yeah,
and you have to grapple with it.
Yeah, it's not so clean cut.
Yeah, this is not. Yeah, no. This is legally. This is a constitutionally. This is a gray area because you have to grapple with the father of our country, the first president of the United States, forcing people to get a smallpox vaccine. Forcing. Now, can you imagine? I don't care who the president is. Can you imagine him sending troops, him sending officers of the state to come and forcibly vaccinate you? Are you kidding me?
Oh, people would
lose their
today.
mind.
Yeah.
Lose their mind. Now, all that to say, I am no Trump apologist, but I greatly appreciate how much he has left this to local states and communities to figure out what's going on and not from the top down dictate what's going on.
Yeah, that has been quite the phenomenon to just watch unfold. And again, not a Trump guy by any means, but I think it kind of points to his wisdom or wisdom of his staffers.
Right.
Listen, these states are not all the same. They're all different. Some of them have a lot of cities. Some of them have almost all rural areas. He knew that from a top down from the government shouldn't be, at the very least, shouldn't be specific. Let the states and the other municipalities take care of that. What do you guys think about his check thing?
Before we go there,
okay.
It goes back to what we were saying earlier, that local is better.
Oh, yeah.
Local is better.
Yeah.
Whether it's local economy or local government, local government is better because they know better what's going on the ground.
Well, they're the people.
And you can hold them more accountable.
That's right.
You go to church with them.
It's much easier.
Right.
Yeah. You break bread with these people.
Right.
Like, you know them.
Yeah.
There are elected officials that go to churches in West Virginia, in north central West Virginia, large ones that I know of. They're people. Imagine if you went up to them like, Larry, why did you raise the taxes?
Right. Yeah. Why did you do that?
I can get at our state House Majority Leader.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
If
right.
I need to, I can. I can get at our local representatives. I can get at those people. I can't get at the President of the United States.
You can't get a Shelley Moore Capito.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't get at Shelley Moore Capito.
No, you're not going to.
Yeah.
You're not going to talk to Manchin and Justice. I mean, do you want to talk
Well,
about
I can get at Manchin, but for
yeah.
other reasons.
Oh, okay.
But even when you do get those people, even when you do get those higher up people, they have a script and they have
a stump.
a stump that they're going to hit you with. They're not going to give you the time of day unless you're someone that's important enough for them to get the time of day too. But if it's local, I elected you. Like there were you won by 15 votes, and I was one of them. So you better pay attention to me. Like,
15 votes is a small margin.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. You better pay attention.
I mean, a county commissioner lives on my parents' street. He won by like 7 votes.
That's what I mean.
I'm like,
My
FYI,
gosh.
there are 5 voters in my family, so
Yeah.
That's right.
You ought to listen.
You
son.
may, that's right. That's right.
You know, I think I think the idea that people are mad about the federal government taking big steps here, I understand. We have whiplash, guys. We've been abused. Like we have battered women syndrome. You know, I get it, but that doesn't mean it's always bad. And that's the absolutism that I despise from the libertarian camp.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, for all the conspiracies out there, this is the real deal. Like, this
Not
really is killing people.
Right.
And if it were to spread the same amount as the flu does every year, it would kill millions.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay?
2 million-ish
We're not talking
on the small
thousands.
end.
Yeah, we're talking millions of deaths.
And everyone says, well, we've got 300 million people. I'm like, you have no idea what that would do. If you had 5 million people die in the United States, our economy would be crippled.
Imagine losing Chicago all at once, losing Chicago. I mean,
Just gone.
That's correct. You can't even wrap your head around those. numbers.
No, you can't.
Right.
You can't.
You don't even know what
It's
that
all,
looks
no,
like.
you don't know what that looks like. It's all theory.
Theoretical.
You don't have a clue.
so you were going to ask about the check?
Oh, you were gonna ask-
you were gonna ask about
So
the
what do you
checks.
guys think about this check? So, like, you know, my first impression is like,
That's just because you're getting money. That's the only reason.
yeah, I'm like, well, I mean, first off,
Everybody likes getting money.
Another gun, more ammo.
yeah,
What's
well, let's just say I couldn't get the money because I'm working through all this. Like, I'm imagining they're not going to just like literally send a blanket check to 300, or 150 million adults.
There's an income limit. There's
Yeah, I to be honest, I've been blessed to be able to work through all this. So let's say I'm not going to get anything out of this. I still think, as far as it goes, our system's already broken. Like, this is the best broken way to fix it.
on the one hand, it's like,
I disagree, but okay.
Oh no, go ahead.
so as a small government advocate, I'm like, ooh, I'm going to get some of my tax money back. Not all of it, but some of it. And I'm like, that's cool. But also, a bunch of people who pay nothing in taxes are going to get a bunch of money that's not theirs, and then it's just wealth redistribution.
That's right.
Right, yeah. No, I mean, I go negative every year in federal taxes. So if I get a $2,000 check, I'm going to be like, so nothing happened.
Yeah.
Like, so, okay, cool.
So my going back to what we said earlier, that there's no creative solution, there's no creative problem solving here at all.
Yeah.
The only thing we know to do is write a check. The only thing we know to do is throw money at a problem.
Right. Yeah.
So
Fake
creative, right? Print more, right? The toilet paper will become more valuable as a currency at a certain point in time.
This has happened in Zimbabwe. It's not far-fetched.
That's right.
Yeah.
This is Venezuela. This is what has happened. So
I want that.
the creative
No, you don't.
No, I don't, but I do kind of. Like,
the creative problem solving is obviously you can look at how are we taxing small business. You can look at what can we do tax wise, but and the Trump administration has been good at cutting regulation and cutting taxes. What they have refused to do is cut spending,
Right.
Which makes zero sense.
Yeah.
Zero sense. I don't even get me started on that. Instead of looking at what we can cut or what we can modify for a certain period of time, which I think would be good, I think looking at what we are spending, particularly in this time, why are we not looking at our foreign aid? Mm-hmm. Look, that seems the most logical thing to me.
Yeah.
The most logical thing to me is look at you. If this is, I mean, he stood on the stage and said, I am a wartime president now, right? Functionally, we are in wartime. We need to act like we're in wartime. People need to bunker down like we're in wartime. That's what we are. Okay. Are you seriously thinking about if we were to go to war, all out war with North Korea, are you still going to be giving foreign aid to Chile or to,
hopefully not.
to whoever else?
Sure.
Are you still going to be sending foreign aid to those people? Yeah. Surely you wouldn't.
Are you still be paying for abortions for black women in Africa?
Are you is this seriously something that we're not considering? That
right.
Foreign aid seems like the big E on the eye chart. If we're talking about creative solutions, that's like the least creative one I can think of.
Yeah.
Take all that foreign aid And if you're going to spend it, okay, fine. Spend it, but at least you're not printing more money, causing the inflation rate to rise because money's coming from nowhere.
Yeah.
There's something else. I mean, there's also the possibility of renegotiating debts with China and saying, hey, listen, you guys got to cause this. Why don't we go back to the negotiating table and
That's racist.
negotiate an interest rate reduction or negotiate the debt being cut or something like these are the creative solutions. Now, I do not envy anyone in the decision making of these of all this process. I don't envy that person at all. But it seems like all of this is just PR to placate the masses rather than to actually solve a problem.
They don't have any other cards to play, though, man. Like I
just gave you two.
But see, I don't think those cards will work. Like, sure, we can renegotiate our interest rates. We can renegotiate.
You can pull foreign aid.
Great. We can obviously pull foreign aid. We can spend that money on taking the economic punch in the face. But
the numbers here, even if you pull all of our foreign aid, you renegotiate all of our debt. We pay about $400 billion or so every year in interest on national debt. Okay, we're talking about a $1 trillion stimulus package.
That's
2.5 years of what we pay in interest on national debt. Okay, that's 1/4 of our annual federal budget. That's I saw a thing that the Federal Reserve is talking about loaning out $1 trillion a week to keep the banks and everything greased. Okay. The net worth of the Federal Reserve is $4 trillion. How is that even possible?
It's fake money. It's money from nowhere. It's money out of thin air.
Right. I just want to illustrate the point.
Yeah.
You know, they have if the Fed's net worth is $4 trillion and they're talking about loaning out $1 trillion a week, 1/4 of their net worth a week. Okay, that's insane.
That's insane.
Mathematically impossible.
Yeah, this is not that hard. This is math.
Less than a week?
Yeah, that's right. You're done. A month and you're done.
Yeah.
So, we can talk about this till we're blue in the face.
What are you going to do with your check?
I am personally, I'm going to buy a 357 Magnum Rossi R92 lever action. It's been in I've got a bunch of 357 Magnum lying around that I reloaded back when I had.
That's not what you were going to talk about, but I totally interrupted.
No, I completely forget what I was going to talk about now.
You need to buy a nice knife.
Yeah,
that's right.
Talk to Joey here. He sells good knives. Zero tolerance. I have literally broken locks with my ZT knife.
Yeah.
So if you have ZTs that you can sell,
I can get them. I don't have them in stock right now, but I can get them.
Right. Yeah. Well, then I recommend that to anyone.
What's your plug? What's your Mon? What is it?
Mighty Mon Knives LLC.
There you go.
MightyMonKnives.com.
Yeah. No big deal.
Yeah.
So we can talk about this till we're blue in the face. Let's just say that no matter what we believe about it being right or wrong, the government is going to take these steps. What should the Christian think? What should the Christian think about? What should they do? What should they think? And where should they be mentally?
Yeah.
I guess.
So I would start out with saying one of the things this whole thing illustrated for us was that we were vastly unprepared as a nation to address a crisis like this. Okay? And one of the, points you see illustrated in the book of Proverbs, when it talks about the ant gathering food, right, in the summer, so that by the time winter rolls around and there's no food to be gathered, the ant's good, right? It's prepared, right? If you're going to get these checks from the government, you're going to get extra money that you weren't necessarily anticipating you would have, and you also realize, as a nation, we have just had our weakness in dealing with an emergency exposed. Think about that, okay? Like, don't make irrational decisions with that little bit of extra money you get that, honestly, for most of you is not even going to be like 1 month's income.
Right.
Okay? Biblically, I would also say, if you're a husband, father, someone who's responsible for providing for, caring for, protecting a family, you also really need to think about the steps you take toward emergency preparedness and how fragile our whole system has just demonstrated it really is, and how unprepared we really are, and how you have to still provide for and protect your family in a situation like that.
And I think we haven't even seen how fragile it can be, because you quarantine people for 10 days and they will potentially possibly comply if you say your grandma's life is on the line. You quarantine people for 2 months, say you can't go to work, say the grocery stores are shut down, say you can't leave your house. Now we're talking about a different story here.
Total societal collapse.
Now we're talking about do I comply with a government ordinance or do I feed my family?
And of course, feed your family.
Yeah, right. And so now this is the fragility that Joey was just talking about. Are you prepared for something like that? So I tongue in cheek ask you what kind of gun you're going to buy, but this is a serious question. Are you prepared to take care of your family, or are you prepared to potentially use the land and hunt the land to feed your family? Are you prepared to do something like that?
Yeah. Do you know how to clean a deer?
Right.
Do you know how to butcher a deer?
And so I think this goes, bringing this full circle. If you are to get this money, or when you do get this money, are you going to use it are you going to use it as a consumer, or are you going to use it as a producer? Are you going to use it
Gosh, that's a good question.
Are you going to use it as a consumer?
Good question.
Yeah.
And you may consume something.
Sure.
There's no, again, it's not the consumption is bad. It's that what are we consuming for? What is the aim? What is the goal of what we're consuming for?
Right.
Is I got an extra $1,200, $1,500. We can book the Airbnb at Myrtle Beach, South Carolina this year, and make sure we get our trip down. If that's the only thing that you're thinking, then you have learned nothing from this whole thing.
Yeah.
You've learned nothing. If you're not putting that away as a nest egg, if you're not thinking how am I protecting my family, if you're not emergency preparedness yourself, if you're not putting it away or putting it in a CD or something so that maybe it'll gain some interest so that you can open a small business or something, do something, produce something, turn it into something. So I want to real quick here. When Jesus gives the parable of the talents, he gives 3 men the same amount of money.
Yeah.
The one who is chastised at the end, the one who was brought before him and cut into pieces. If I'm not mixing up my stories here, the one who is yelled at and raked over the coals, he didn't lose any money.
Right. He just didn't do anything with it.
He just did nothing with it.
Yeah.
He did nothing with it. He literally buried it in the ground.
Yeah.
Let that sink in.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Let that sink in. That Jesus is not raking the guy over the coals for losing money, for going big, and then he lost and he tried and everything fell apart. No, he literally did nothing. And why did he do nothing? He said, because I was afraid. I was afraid.
Yeah.
I knew that you were a harsh taskmaster. I knew that if something bad happened, then you would be angry with me, and I was in fear, and so I did nothing. And that is the worst possible thing you could do in a situation like this.
Yeah.
The worst possible thing you could do in a situation like this is be afraid and do nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
Is be so paralyzed by fear that you do nothing. There's a great book. I want to book plug, and then I'll let you finish. You can listen to the first chapter on there's a podcast called All of Christ for All of Life. It's from Canon Press, and they release the first chapter of some of their books. Sometimes you can listen to the first chapter. It's called The Clouds Ye So Much Dread. The Clouds Ye So Much Dread. And I'm trying to think of the name of the author, and I'm blanking on it right now.
That's fine. I'll take it over from here to while you look that up. Bring that up, Jamie.
Bring that up, Jamie. Hey, Anthony, can you bring that up for us?
Yeah, Anthony, right? So I think you guys have been spot on. I want to address like fear in general. Like if you you should be afraid of getting the coronavirus. I think that'd be a reasonable fear. But here's the thing, guys. Like God's gonna take you back. He's gonna take you back. It is what it is. So be safe. Be prudent. That Luther quote, the Martin Luther quote, that
the smallpox.
Yeah,
quote,
that was really
the Black Plague.
Yeah, it was really just being prudent, and I'll go help people, but I'm not going to kill myself so I can't help anyone ever again. Like, or if I get taken, I get taken, and
or the last thing I want to be is responsible for killing my neighbor.
Right? Yeah. Or I don't want to be irresponsible. Like half of you, I'm going to say the word jackasses out there who are like looking at me like because I've got 4 kids, or 3 with 1 on the way. I've got like just a normal sized, shopping cart, and they just look at me like, I'm like, oh, you're prepping. I'm like, no,
I'm just
buying food. But don't be afraid in that sense. If you're gonna die, you're gonna die. Be safe. Be calm. Worry about your neighbor. Love your neighbor. Don't be selfish.
Right.
You guys hate price gouging. Stop stocking up.
That's
We
right.
have artificial stocking up,
We don't
price
even,
gouging.
we don't even
Yeah.
we don't even want to. I mean,
No.
we could have a whole show on price.
Oh yeah,
gouging.
I'm just telling you guys, like they're mutually connected.
I would say look at China, who has mostly, in theory, got past their peak on this.
if you trust them.
Right.
They did not suffer total societal collapse. So why would we? Okay? So just, I mean, yes, be prepared, but don't freak out and panic. Like, this didn't make China collapse. China is like 3 times our population. Okay, they could be disrupted a lot worse by something like this than we could, in that sense. Like, they didn't collapse. Why would we?
So Hannah Greaser wrote, "The clouds you so much dread." And I'm going to read the first part of that Luther
Go
quote.
nuts.
"I shall ask God mercifully to protect us, but then I shall fumigate, help purify the air, administer medicine, and take it." That's it. You want to know the Christian response? That's it.
That's good.
Pray for God to mercifully protect us, then fumigate and purify the air and administer medicine and take it. That's it.
And the second, more practical part of my response is this: it's like Seth was saying, don't do nothing. Say you do get $2,000, man, you'd be surprised how much, like, just $10,000 if you could save that up over a year, while simultaneously lowering your household overhead. Like, so you don't have 2 car payments, or you don't have such a nice car, you sold your nicer car to get a cheaper car. Lower your overhead and save up money so you can start a business either at home or otherwise that produces. So if you can lower your costs and produce more, if 5 out of 10 families did that in America, we'd be 10 times more powerful as a country,
Especially as Christians.
Oh gosh!
If Christians did that, think about how much. I mean, you talk about the quote unquote evangelical voting bloc. Think about how much sway you don't have. Your power is not just political now, and it's not just theoretical. But it's now economic, and it's now. If we want to make a change, we can make a change. If we want to make a move, we can make a move.
And while you're home, this is a good time for you to get back into the spiritual disciplines, and reading the Bible to your children once a day, and going over catechism questions or something equivalent with your children every day. Because if you want children with all this money to do good things and build the kingdom, they need to be children who love God and
You need to disciple them. That's
you
right.
need to disciple them. So. I mean, don't lose that part. Don't try to build the kingdom overnight. You still have to worry about your children and family and all that. So, Seth, go
On
ahead.
that note, remember the Lord. Fight for your children. Fight for your families. Fight for your homes. This has been the Mountain Musket.